the Bible, the one of the oldest texts in the world, one of the most I would call it structurally sound texts, one of the most not that that's not the word, one of the most preserved texts in the world, has existed for at least 2,000 years, probably even more than that. I'd say, it depends on when scholars agree upon when the original, like, first 5 books were written by Moses. I could go into Bible lore, but that'd be a whole different YouTube series. What I'm getting at is, the Bible is a highly preserved document. However, there are many different versions of the Bible that sort of, you know, translate things differently. Not in huge different ways. Like, if it's talking about God, it's talking about God. If it's talking about the devil, it's talking about the devil. But when you get into the nitty gritty of, like, this word specifically over this word specifically, and what the original Greek and what the original intention and all these other things, it leads to a bunch of different versions of the same text. Much like what we're going to go into with One Piece. Very interesting, wouldn't you agree? Hello, Internet. I am the hero of Julius once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1136, The Land That Awaits the Sun. Our art this week is a continuation of Yamato's journey, as Yamato and little Otama, because they captured Hold'em, they tied him up, they found a mysterious building. Yeah, if you take a look at it, it's real hard to figure out who that building belongs to. Real wonder of who could that building belong to. Me and Oda have very different definitions of the word who. Or I should say mysterious. But enough about that mysterious building. Let's get into the actual banquet, which is the start of the chapter. The banquet happens, and Luffy is eating, and Sanji is flirting, and Usopp is lying. He actually tells the giants about oars, and how he was the one that delivered the final blow. The one I actually like the most, though, is Jinbei. Because this is like the first time we've gotten to see the crew with their usual, like, crowd interactions. You got Luffy having a great time. He's complimenting the meat that he's eating. It reminds him of dinosaur meat. And Usopp's telling the great story of how wonderful and powerful he is. Sanji tells them, the mermaids of Fishman Island are beautiful, but not as beautiful as the giant women before me, and all that stuff. But the giants are fascinated by Jinbei, given that he's blue. They're like, wow, you really do have blue skin. Fishmen are pretty unique in that sense. And Jinbei goes, oh yeah, if you head back to Fishman Island, there are as many skin tones there as there are fish swimming in the sea, which is accurate given that fishmen are akin to fish in terms of their physical qualities. So while all this is going on, Nami and Zoro are kind of looking on at the crowd, and they're discussing how interesting it is that a lot of giants actually haven't left Elbaf. And Nami even states that she kind of just assumed they were all pirates. I mean, if you think about it, when we think of, like, ancient Scandinavian culture and, the land of the Vikings and stuff, you kind of forget that there are Vikings who stayed at home. They're the ones that brewed the meat. They're the ones that forge the weapons. They're the ones that make the armor. They stay at home doing homemaking things. It's actually quite interesting. But the giants who haven't left haven't seen the world. They're just as cut off as the rest of the world. The way Vegapunk was saying how he wanted to connect all the cultures and mind thoughts and the world together, creating a web of information, if you will. As Nami and Zoro are discussing this, though, they are interrupted by Road, who has come to apologize to his ultra-rare Nami and the rest of the ultra-rare Straw Hats. Please forgive me, as you see his face is beaten senseless by Gerd, which apparently, as you can see from a little speech bubble from him, this has awakened something inside of him, so there might be a little bit of masochism in Road's future. That's I don't really understand people who like being in pain, but apparently this is a thing for him now. Anyways, he does apologize to them, and Zoro tells him, don't worry about it, because, nobody died. Mostly because Usopp stopped me. Because if Usopp hadn't stopped me, and he pulls out his sword mercilessly and says, you wouldn't have a head. As Road freaks out at this notion because, well, Road forgot to check the bounties of the Straw Hat crew, so when Haruden told him, hey, this guy's our boss now, apparently Road decided to do no more research than, is he human? Yes? Oh, well then clearly he's not that great. Considering Lin, Kaido, Whitebeard, I mean, I know Kaido's Oni, but Whitebeard, Blackbeard, Shanks, all of these smaller, shorter races, and you didn't even want to, check? So, yeah, he gets a bit of a culture shock there, realizing, I could have died. Yeah, I could have been dead. Literally, Usopp saved his life. But it's okay, because as Rhodes apologizing, he says, hey, the stuff I did in there with the big, the skull helmet and the, oh, look at me, I am the sun god. It was, how can you blame me? It's the dream of all giants of Elbaf. And Luffy's like, what do you mean by that? And they were like, yeah, no, Harden, Stanson, Goldberg, they all explain that, yes, this is the dream of literally everyone in Elbaf, is to be the next sun god and rule the world. This is when we hear the huge argument going on about whether or not the sun god Nika was a joyful bringer of laughter, if he was a god of destruction, if he was a god of change, if he was a god of joy, if he was a god of sorrow. These people arguing meticulously about what the sacred Harley texts say, as Jarl explains to Luffy. So, the sacred texts, the Harley texts, as Jarl explains to Luffy, are as follows. The world ended twice, and in those instances, the name Nika comes up. It is unknown whether or not he caused the destruction, or if he was the joyful leader who protected people during the destruction. But during this time period of change, both times, Nika's name came up. He was a legendary warrior with clouds of white smoke around him and white hair and white clothes to boot and a booming laughter that was contagious to all who heard it. And as Luffy's, munching on his dinosaur meat and he's listening to this, he goes, huh. Yeah, that sounds like the guy Bonnie kept calling me. She said I was a lot like him, and he keeps eating, and Jarl's like, yes, wait, what? And Luffy's like, well, the white hair, the white clothes, like the fancy stuff, but it probably has got nothing to do with me. So, until Luffy transforms and everybody sees this, it's still this miscommunication we have going on right now, and I'm still interested to see what happens when Luffy learns that he's a zone type, because I think once Luffy learns that, his first thing's gonna be, Chopper, give me a Rumble Ball, I want to see what happens, because that, I have absolutely no clue what would happen, because remember, Chopper had to learn to control the Rumble Ball first, then we saw what happened when he ate too many, and now the new Rumble Ball immediately awakens his fruit. Wait. Well, okay, so I should clarify. There is no confirmation that Monster Point is Chopper's awakening. However, given everything we've seen about awakened zones, it is highly probable that Monster Point is the awakening of the human fruit. That being said, if the Rumble Ball now moves Chopper to Monster Point, but Luffy can switch to Gear 5th whenever he wants. So maybe the Rumble Ball actually wouldn't do anything for Luffy. Huh. Well, regardless, we got some interesting news here, given that the Sun God is widely considered differently among different people, which also means even Loki and his interpretation of the sun god have a chance to be correct. And this is something that Jorl brings up. Even in his murder of his father, King Harald, both Harald and Loki had some ways of being sun god-like themselves. Now, mind you, the other giants do not see it that way at all, and they're telling him, hey, don't defend Loki's actions. It's, Linlin killed, Jorl the same year that Loki was born. Loki, at the age of 10, went down to the underworld and tamed all the beasts and killed the ones that didn't get tamed. And growing up, he was an arsonist who caused chaos whenever his dad wasn't looking. And then to top it all off, he killed his father and took the sacred devil fruit. So he is not a good person. And Luffy's like, huh. So is this Loki guy a good person? And they're like, all these things we just told you. And he's like, oh, well, I just, he seems kind of trustworthy. But the way Luffy talks about Loki, the way Luffy asks about Loki, does make a questioning look in Zoro's eye. And Zoro actually takes Luffy aside, asks him what's going on, and while we don't see the whole conversation, we just kind of see the end of it, Luffy told Zoro everything, which warms my heart, because I was a little worried Luffy was going to keep a secret from his crew, and that's A, just not like Luffy at all, he's a terrible liar, and B, I feel like Luffy cares more about his crew than he does Loki. So even basically, if you tell Luffy a secret, chances are you've told the rest of the Straw Hat crew the secret. So keep that in mind if you ever meet Luffy in real life for some reason. Don't tell him something you aren't prepared for, like Frankie, Usopp, and Robin to know. Like, that's just gonna happen. So, because of this, Zoro brings up a great point of, hey, maybe Loki's lying to you. And Luffy's like, do you really think a guy would do that? A guy would just go on the internet and spread lies? Because Loki apparently promised Luffy to tell him where Shanks is. And if, you set me free, I'll help you, find Shanks, and we'll have a great old time together. And Zoro's like, this is obviously a lie, but, if it isn't, that'd be cool for you. I know how important it is for you to see Shanks again. You have told me 1,000 times about it. And Luffy's like, that's right. Plus, if Loki is lying, we'll just beat him up. Because, that's kind of easy for us. And I know we haven't seen Loki do anything. I firmly believe in a one-on-one fight, Luffy could beat Loki. Just based on everything we've been told about Loki so far, I really truly do think Luffy could win. There are few characters in the verse that I actually think Luffy could lose to at this point. So it'd be interesting, but I don't think it would be that big of a threat. And speaking of big threats, though, where are Zoro and Luffy going off to all by themselves without Nami noticing? As Nami brings up, hey, I saw the two of you sneak off. Have you ever successfully gotten to a destination without me? So, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami head off towards the castle together. In one of the flying ships, they got someone rowing the oars, because it's Road. Nami struck him with lightning again, and apparently, this is a thing for Road now. He enjoys pain, and anyways, he is now one of Nami's wonderful servants. He has been enhanced. He has been upgraded. He is now a servant of Nami, a wonderful employment with no benefits, no dental, no pay, just life-risking terrors in the name of your queen, Nami. Anyways, Zeus does let him know there is a pecking order here. So there's Nami, and then me, Zeus. I'm her number one, which I'm sure there's debate because number two is Sanji. And I don't know, I feel like just because Nami carries you with her everywhere doesn't really make you number one, Zeus. But according to Zeus, that's the hierarchy here. And then it's you, Road. You are servant number 3. So place your bets, everybody. By the end of the series, do you think Nami's going to have her own sub-crew of 10 members? Or do you think we're going to stop at Road? Who knows? But as the three of them are flying towards the castle, the goal is to get a key. And that key will unlock Loki's chains. In exchange, Loki will tell Luffy where Shanks is. We're heading towards a big castle. I'm sure there's going to be guards, unless those God's Knights took out all the guards. But more importantly, there's a treasure chamber. And Nami says, wow, that sure is a big castle. I bet it has a really big treasure chamber. Hey, Rode, if all the gold went missing from that treasure chamber, do you think anyone would notice? And Rode says, well, Nami, my eyesight is pretty terrible, so I probably wouldn't even notice if the money went missing. And then it is revealed that that is Nami's true reason for following the two of them into the heart of danger. Because, hey, what is the Straw Hat crew without being completely broke and Nami trying to steal more money? So everything is par for the course. But the cool part about this is we haven't had the original, like we were talking at the start of this arc about how cool it is that, you know, the East Blue Five and Chopper are separated from the rest of the crew. Like, this is the pre-Alabasta, post-Alabasta group. But it's been forever since the first three have been together. And these are the three original characters that Oda had, like, drawn, planned, you know, personalities designed from the start. Even Sanji and Usopp look different from their concept art. I mean, granted, Nami, you know, used to have a possibility of a giant battle axe, but the core look of the characters hasn't changed on these three, and that's pretty cool. So to have the original three together doing something, I really hope Oda does a lot with them during this part of the story. Now, whether or not they succeed might not be relevant. You see, Loki might not even be in his chains by the time Luffy gets there, because Loki is meeting up with some new people. That's right, the God's Knights from before have made their way down to the underworld. They got to Loki and they are offering him a deal. They will free him from the chains that bind him. In exchange, he joins the God's Knights. To which Loki responds, hey, that would make me a celestial dragon. I don't like those guys. Nobody wants to be scum like that, so pass. Go ahead. You can leave. And that's when we learn the name of one of the two. The girl of the pair, she's mad about this because apparently every single time they have sent someone to parley with Loki, the last thing they see is a giant raven heading towards them, and then the transmission cuts out. So all those people that we saw in Rhodes' diorama, a lot of them are probably agents of the God's Knights. I wouldn't call them God's Knights themselves, obviously, but they're probably like messengers or something of that nature. But Rhodes scooped them up, so kind of a bit of fate there, which is exactly why the two of them are here. They got tired of waiting. As we learn, the girl's name is Gunko, at least that's how I think it's pronounced. But Gunko and definitely not Shanks teleported here themselves because she got tired of waiting, and the impudence of them not responding to her calls has made her raise her hand. Speaking of raising her hand, we don't really see her hands. She's got this, like, kind of like my sleeves are too long for my arm kind of thing going on, which is a cute look. But what fascinates me is the fact that the sleeve turns into an arrow. For those of you who've seen Soul Eater, this kind of reminds me of Medusa's, like, vector arrows. But more importantly, it reminds me of Eames arrows. So I'll get into that later as I finish summarizing the rest of this plot. Loki then tells, Gunko and not Shanks, you guys better be careful. Even though I'm chained up, my beasts are still around, as a big old wolf starts walking towards them. This is when not Shanks tells Gunko, we need to calm down. There's really no need to get too crazy here. And it's actually interesting because you see from the panel where Gunko is, like, first introduced, there's a speech bubble coming off of her, and then in the panel next to it, the definitely not Shanks, his face is covered by the speech bubble. So Oda found a way to hide the scar side of Shanks's face with a speech bubble. I really think that's just cool. That's good art direction. I really think that's really cool. Well, anyways, unfortunately for Wolf, Gunko easily wraps an arrow around his neck and hangs him by it. Loki's like, "Oh no, Wolf, my buddy!" And definitely not Shanks is telling him, "Hey, we'll spare your dog. We'll let him go. We'll set him free if you meet our demands." And Loki goes, "Ah, I see. Well, then in that case, Wolf, it's time to die with honor. It is time to accept your fate, because I will be mad. I will be sad. I will be upset that my dog has been killed. But it is not the way of the warrior to just curl up in a ball because you killed his pet. Instead, I will use the rage I obtained from this malicious murder to fuel my vengeance as I destroy the world." Yeah. So, Loki's got a bit of an honor system of his own. He's got a bit of a warrior's dogma to him. I kind of was thinking he was going to help save his dog, but I guess that's not the way of Loki. Now, that's where the chapter ends. So I don't know if they are going to free him. I don't know if they're going to try and kill him. These are fascinating things to talk about. One thing I forgot to mention is, apparently the reason Loki got stopped out in the big ocean blue was because 6 years ago, red-haired Shanks stopped him. 6 years ago, red-haired Shanks became one of the Emperors of the Sea. This means that most likely the defeat of Loki, the Prince of the Giants, is the reason Shanks was considered one of the 4 emperors. This does raise the question of whether or not there were always 4 emperors of the sea, or if the 4 emperors really did start with Kaido, Lin, Shanks, and Whitebeard. But I'm kind of hoping it was a title that was always there, because personally I'm starting a D&D campaign based on One Piece, and I'm making up my own member of the 4 emperors, and I won't get into that because some of my players watch these videos. But anyways, it's interesting to see that that's how Shanks probably got his title, confirming a lot of people's theories. I've seen a lot of videos on it, so good job, guys. I kind of understood, I kind of agreed, but I didn't really solidify my stake in that fire. What I am putting my money on, though, is how Gunko got her arrows. So we know for a fact that a summoning circle allowed the Gorosei to head to Egghead. We know that on the Gorosei's summoning circles, there were numbers. Whether these numbers indicate rank or power or anything like that is irrelevant, but we know these circles are an available ability to all 5 of the elders. We also saw this same summoning circle bring about the God's Knights. While this summoning circle didn't have numbers on it, it's starting to become safe to say the summoning power is not related to a specific person in these groups. Because if it was, that person would always be part of the summoning system. I also want to bring up that the 5 elders don't have formally named devil fruits. In fact, it kind of bugs me that the One Piece wiki even mentions them as zone users, because yes, they can transform. Yes, they have the clouds that awakened zone users seem to have. However, we have not gotten confirmation that these are devil fruit powers. We have just gotten confirmation that these guys are monsters. The reason I want to bring this up is the arrows that come off of Gunko that she uses to wrap around the wolf's neck and hang him high look very similar to the arrows that Eam used when he stabbed King Cobra. I'm starting to wonder if Eam has a connection to devil fruit powers themselves in a way that nobody else can. There is a going theory that Eam is the god of the sea himself, or Eam ate some, demon devil fruit, which I'm still on that one too, or maybe like the nightmare fruit or something like that. But maybe Eam is more than that. Maybe Eam has a kid. Like, Eam always stays in this big garden room, right? What if Eam harnesses the power of uneaten devil fruits? What if, however it happens, if a devil fruit hasn't been consumed, if its power is out of circulation, or maybe if a devil fruit has never been eaten before, its power can be used through a vessel. What I mean by this is, what if Eam has, like, the original devil fruit tree? And when Eam gives somebody, or Eam, what if Eam has the power to give the abilities of devil fruits to other people? Like, Eam himself doesn't have a devil fruit at all, but works as a conduit. I mean, you saw when Warcury, in his boar form, leapt towards Luffy with no fear of the ocean below. Maybe that's because Eam is the one who risks the drowning. Maybe Eam is the one who has the drawback, and he can just conduit the power to individuals. But when these powers aren't bestowed to someone, Eam himself can use them. So maybe when he went to teleport away the 2 Gods Knights that he sent to Elbaf, if they were sent by Eam specifically, he gave Gunko the arrow fruit, or the vector fruit, or whatever it's going to be called. And that is how she has her arrows. Or maybe it's the opposite direction. If somebody eats a devil fruit, like Blackbeard and the darkness fruit, what if Eam has the ability to add that power to his collection of abilities through like a ritualistic process, like a magic circle kind of thing? And by doing that, he takes on the burden of the devil fruit weakness, which is why his eyes are so wild and he's in this big silhouette, because he's got this like gauded form of just shriveled up body because he's absorbed so many devil fruit weaknesses. I think I might be not too far off the mark here, but this is just first impressions after reading the chapter. Regardless, she has arrows, they're kind of cool, and definitely not Shanks is definitely evil in some degree. I don't really think there's much else I can say about this chapter. We have a nice little lore drop here. The world ended twice, which is a fascinating topic. I should go into detail on that. So the world ended twice, according to Elbaf's sacred texts. We know the world technically ended once when the sea levels rose and the world got flooded. That's how Vegapunk explained what happened after the Void Century. The great question here is, over the course of 800 years, did another world-ending cataclysmic event happen? Or did something happen even further back? Does this rabbit hole go deeper than the Void Century? And is that something Robin's going to learn during the true history of the world? Regardless, that's kind of all we got, and we only know that Nika's name is invoked both times. So, chances are Luffy's really is going to end the world or destroy Fishman Island, as Shirley put it. It's going to be very interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So, let me know any theories you got in the comments below, because I would love to hear what other people's thoughts are on this. And speaking of which, I'm going to go start watching other people's thoughts on this.